Hello, and welcome back to Storytime with Keiran. So, we are continuing on with Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, probably for the final time. Starting off at chapter 25, probably going right to the end, 35. Think we can make it today? Yeah, that's surprisingly few pages for 10 chapters, wow. Alright. Well, let's go then. There are of course many problems connected with life, of which some of the most popular are: why are people born? Why do they die? Why do they want to spend so much of the intervening time wearing digital watches? Many, many millions of years ago, a race of hyper-intelligent pan-dimensional beings, whose physical manifestation in their own pan-dimensional universe is not dissimilar to our own, got so fed up with the constant bickering about the meaning of life, which used to interrupt their favourite pastime of blocking ultra cricket. A curious game which involves suddenly hitting people for no readily apparent reason and then running away. Did Douglas Adams invent happy slapping? That they decided to sit down and solve their problems once and for all. And to this end they built themselves a stupendous supercomputer, which was so amazingly intelligent that even before its databanks had been connected up, it started from "I think, therefore I am," and got so as far as deducing the existence of rice pudding and income tax before anyone managed to turn it off. It was the size of a small city. Its main console was installed in a specially designed executive office, mounted on an enormous executive desk of finest ultra mahogany, topped with rich ultra-red leather. The dark carpeting was discreetly sumptuous. Exotic pot plants and tastefully engraved prints of the principal computer programmers and their families were deployed deliberately about the room, and stately windows looked out upon a tree-lined public square. On the day of the great on-turning, two somberly dressed programmers with briefcases arrived, and were shown discreetly into the office. They were aware that this day they would represent their entire race in its greatest moment, but they conducted themselves calmly and quietly, as they seated themselves deferentially before the desk, opened their briefcases, and took out their leather-bound notebooks. Their names were Lunkwell and Fook. For a few moments they sat in respectful silence. Then, after exchanging a quick glance with Fook, Lunkwell leaned forward and touched a small black panel. The subtlest of hums indicated that the master computer was now in total active mode. After a pause, it spoke to them in a voice rich, resonant, and deep. It said, "What is this great task, for which I, Deep Thought, the second greatest computer in the universe, of time and space, have been called into existence?" Lunkwell and Fook glanced at each other in surprise.
"Your task, oh computer,"
began Fook.
No, wait a minute. This isn't right,"
said Lunkwell, worried.
"We distinctly designed this computer to be the greatest one ever, and we're not making it second best. Deep Thought,"
he addressed the computer.
"I know as we designed you to be the greatest, most powerful computer in all time."
"I described myself as the second greatest," intoned Deep Thought, "and such I am." Another worried look passed between the two programmers. Lunkwell cleared his throat.
"There must be some mistake,"
he said.
"Are you not a greater computer than the Milliard Gargantua brain at Maximalegalon, which can count all the atoms in a star in a millisecond?"
"The Milliard Gargantua brain," said Deep Thought with unconcealed contempt. "A mere abacus. Mention it not."
"And are you not," said Fook, leaning anxiously forward, "a greater analyst than the Godoplex star sinker in the seventh galaxy of light and ingenuity, which can calculate the trajectory of every single dust particle through a 5-week Dankebrand beta sand blizzard?"
A 5-week sand blizzard, said Deep Thought haughtily. You ask this of me, who have contemplated the very vectors of the atom and the Big Bang itself. Molest me not with this pocket calculator stuff. The two programmers sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Then Luckwell leaned forward again.
But are you not, he said, a more fiendish disputant than the great hyperbolic omnicognate neutron wrangler of Cerceronius 12, the magic and indefatigable?
I don't think I've said that word right, but you know what? I don't care. I'm carrying on. The great hyperbolic. It doesn't actually say hyperbolic. It says hyperlobic. Whatever. Omnicognate neutron wrangler, said Deep Thought, thoroughly rolling the R's. Could talk all 4 legs of an Arthurian megadonkey, but only I could persuade it to go for a walk again afterwards.
Then what?
Asked Fook.
Is the problem?
There is no problem, said Deep Thought with magnificent ringing tones. I am simply the second greatest computer in the universe of space and time.
But the second?
Insisted Luckwell.
Why do you keep saying the second? You're surely not thinking of the multi-cortioid Persecuron Titan Muller, are you? Or the Ponomatic, or the
contemptuous lights flashed across the computer's console. I spare not a single unit of thought on these cybernetic simpletons, he boomed. I speak of none but the computer that is to come after me. Fook was losing patience. He pushed his notebook aside and muttered, I think this is getting needlessly messianic. You know nothing of future time, pronounced Deep Thought. And yet, in my teeming circuitry, I can navigate the infinite delta streams of future probability and see that there must one day come a computer whose merest operational parameters I am not worthy to calculate, but which it will be my fate eventually to design. Fook sighed heavily and glanced across to Luckwell.
Can we get on and ask the question?
He said. Luckwell motioned him to wait.
What computer is this of which you speak?
He asked. I will speak of it no further in this present time, said Deep Thought. Now, ask what else of me you will, that I may function. Speak. They shrugged at each other. Fook composed himself.
Oh, Deep Thought computer, he said. The task we have designed you to perform is this. We want you to tell us.
He paused.
The answer.
The answer, said Deep Thought. The answer to what?
Life,
urged Fook.
The universe,
said Luckwell.
Everything,
they said in chorus. Deep Thought paused for a moment's reflection. Tricky, he said finally.
But can you do it?
Again, a significant pause. Yes, said Deep Thought. I can do it.
There is an answer,
said Fook with breathless excitement.
A simple answer,
added Luckwell. Yes, said Deep Thought. Life, the universe, and everything. There is an answer. But, he added, I'll have to think about it. A sudden commotion destroyed the moment. The door flew open and 2 angry men wearing the coarse faded blue robes and belts of the Kratzwan University burst into the room, thrust inside the ineffectual flunkies who tried to bar their way. We demand admission, shouted the younger of the 2 men, elbowing a pretty young secretary in the throat. Come on, shouted the older one. You can't keep us out. He pushed a junior programmer back through the door. We demand you can't keep us out, bawled the younger one, though he was now firmly inside the room and no further attempts were being made to stop him.
Who are you?
Said Lunk Will, rising angrily from his seat.
What do you want?
I am Magic Theist, announced the older one. And I demand I am Vrimfrondel, shouted the younger one. Magic Theist turned on Vrimfrondel. It's all right, he explained angrily. You don't need to demand that. All right, bawled Vrimfrondel, banging on a nearby desk. I am Vrimfrondel, and that is not a demand. That is the solid fact. And what we demand is solid facts. No, we don't, exclaimed Magic Theist in irritation. That is precisely what we don't demand. Scarcely pausing for breath, Vrimfrondel shouted, We don't demand solid facts. What we demand is a total absence of solid facts. I demand that I may or may not be Vrimfrondel. But who the devil are you? Exclaimed an outraged Fook. We, said Magic Theist, are philosophers. Though we may not be, said Vrimfrondel, waving a warning finger at the programmers. Yes, we are, insisted Magic Theist. We are quite definitely here as representatives of the amalgamated union of philosophers, sages, luminaries, and other thinking persons. And we want this machine off. And we want it off now.
What's the problem?
Said Luntwell.
I'll tell you what the problem is, mate,
said Magic Theist.
Demarcation. That's the problem.
We demand, yelled Vrimfrondel, that demarcation may or may not be the problem.
You just let the machines get on with the adding up,
warned Magic Theist.
And we'll take care of the eternal verities, thank you very much. You want to check your legal position, you do, mate? Under the law, the quest for ultimate truth is quite clearly...
Oh dear, what's happening to his voice?
Under law, the quest for ultimate truth is quite clearly the unalienable prerogative of your working thinkers. Any bloody machine goes and actually finds it, and we're straight out of a job, aren't we? I mean, what's the use of our sitting up half the night arguing that there may or may not be a God if this machine only goes and gives you his bleeding phone number the next morning?
Should have been a different voice for this guy. Never mind. That's right, shouted Vrimfrondel. We demand rigidly defined areas of doubt and uncertainty. Suddenly, a stentorian voice boomed across the room. Might I make an observation at this point? Inquired Deep Thought. We'll go on strike, yelled Vrimfrondel.
That's right,
agreed Magic Theist.
You have a national philosopher strike in your hands.
The hum level in the room suddenly increased as several ancillary bass drivers, bass driver units, mounted and sedately carved and varnished cabinet speakers around the room, cut into Deep Thought's voice a little more power.
All I wanted to say, boomed the computer, is that my circuits are now irrevocably committed to calculating the answers to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything.
He paused and satisfied himself that he had now everyone's attention before continuing more quietly. But the program will take me a little while to run. Foot gazed impatiently at his watch.
How long?
He said.
7.5 million years,
said Deep Thought. Lukewill and Foot blinked at each other.
7.5 million years?
They cried in chorus.
Yes,
demanded Deep Thought.
I said I'd have to think about it, didn't I? And it occurs to me that running a program like this is bound to create
an enormous amount of popular publicity for the whole area of philosophy in general. Everyone's going to have their own theories about what answer I'm eventually going to come up with. And who better to capitalise on that media market than you yourselves? So long as you keep disagreeing with each other violently enough and keep slagging each other off in the popular press, and so long as you have clever agents, you can keep yourselves on the gravy train for life. How does that sound? The two philosophers gaped at him.
Bloody hell,
said Magic Thief.
now that is what I call thinking. Here, Umfrondel. Why do we never think of things like that?
Dunno, said Vimfrondel in an odd whisper. Think our brains must be too highly trained, Magic Thief. So saying, they turned on their heels and walked out the door and into a lifestyle beyond their wildest dreams. Yes, very salutary, said Arthur, after Sartibas related the salient points of the story to him. But I don't understand what all this has got to do with the earth and mice and things. That is but the first half of the story, Earthman, said the old man. If you would care to discover what happened 7.5 million years later, on the great day of the answer, allow me to invite you to my study, where you can experience the events yourself on our central tape records. That is, unless you would care to take a quick stroll on the surface of New Earth. It's only half completed, I'm afraid. We haven't even finished burying the artificial dinosaur skeletons in the crust yet. Then we have the Tertiary and the Quaternary periods of the Cenozoic era to lay down, and... No, thank you, said Arthur. It wouldn't be quite the same. No, said Slarty Blackfast. It wouldn't be. And he turned the aircar around and headed back down towards the mind-numbing wall. Slarty Blackfast's study was a total mess, like the results of an explosion in the public library. The old man frowned as he stepped in. Terribly unfortunate, he said. A diode blew in one of the life support computers. When we tried to revive our cleaning staff, we discovered they'd been dead for nearly 30,000 years. Who's going to clear away the bodies? That's what I want to know. Look, why don't you sit yourself down there and let me plug you in? He gestured Arthur towards a chair, which looked as if it had been made out of the ribcage of a stegosaurus. It was made out of the ribcage of a stegosaurus, explained the old man as he pottered about fishing bits of wire out from under the tottering piles of paper and drawing instruments. Here, he said, hold these, and passed a couple of stripped wire ends to Arthur. The instant he took hold of them, a bird flew straight through him. He was suspended in midair and totally invisible to himself. Beneath him was a pretty tree-lined city square, and all around it, as far as I could see, were white concrete buildings of airy, spacious design, but somewhat the worse for wear. Many were cracked and stained with rain. Today, however, the sun was shining. A fresh breeze danced lightly through the trees, and the odd sensation that all the buildings were quietly humming was probably caused by the fact that the square and all the streets around it were thronged with cheerful, excited people. Somewhere a band was playing, brightly coloured flags were fluttering in the breeze, and the spirit of carnival was in the air. Arthur felt extraordinarily lonely stuck up in the air, above all, without so much as a body to his name. Before he had the time to reflect on this, a voice rang out across the square and called for everyone's attention. A man standing on a brightly dressed dais before the building, which clearly dominated the square, was addressing the crowd over a tannoy. "O people who wait in the shadow of deep thought," he cried out, "honoured descendants of Rimfrondo and Magic Thief, the greatest and most truly interesting pundits the universe has ever known, the time of waiting is over!" Wild cheers broke out among the crowd. Flags, streamers and wolf whistles sailed through the air. The narrow streets looked rather like centipedes rolled over on their backs and frantically waving their legs in the air. 7.5 million years our race has waited for this great and hopefully enlightening day, cried the cheerleader. The day of the answer! Hurrahs burst out from the ecstatic crowd. Never again, cried the man. Never again will we wake up in the morning and think, who am I? What is my purpose in life? Does it really, cosmically speaking, matter if I don't get up and go to work? For today, we will finally learn once and for all the plain and simple answer to all those natty little problems of life, the universe, and everything! As the crowd erupted once again, Arthur found himself gliding through the air and down towards one of the large stately windows on the first floor of the building, behind the dais from which the speaker was addressing the crowd. He experienced a moment's panic as he sailed straight towards the window, which passed when a second or so later he found he had gone straight right through the solid glass without apparently touching it. No one in the room remarked on his peculiar arrival, which is hardly surprising, as he wasn't there. He began to realise that the whole experience was merely a recorded projection, which knocked 6-70mm into a cocked hat. The room was much as Sartre Blackfast had described it. In 7.5 million years, it had been well looked after and cleaned regularly over every century or so. The ultra-mahogany desk was worn at the edges, the carpet a little faded now, but the large computer terminal sat in sparkling glory on the desk lever top, as bright as if it had been constructed yesterday. Two severely dressed men sat respectfully before the terminal and waited. The time is nearly upon us, said one, and Arthur was surprised to see a word suddenly materialise in thin air just behind the man's neck. The word was Lunqual, and it flashed a couple of times and then disappeared again. Before Arthur was able to assimilate this, the other man spoke, and the word Fuk appeared by his neck.
75,000 generations ago, our ancestors set this program in motion,
the sick man said.
And in all that time, we'll be the first to hear the computer speak. An awesome prospect,
agreed the first man, and Arthur suddenly realised he was watching a recording with subtitles.
We are the ones who will hear, said Fuk. The answer to the great question of life. The universe, said Lunqual, and everything.
Shh, said Lunqual with a slight gesture.
I think Deep Thought is preparing to speak.
There was a moment's expectant pause whilst panels slowly came to life on the front of the console. Lights flashed on and off experimentally and settled down into a business-like pattern. A slow, soft hum came from the communication channel. Good morning, said Deep Thought at last.
Good morning, oh Deep Thought, said Lunqual nervously. Do you have, that is...
An answer for you, interrupted Deep Thought majestically. Yes, I have. The two men shivered with expectancy. Their waiting had not been in vain.
There really is one, breathed.
There really is one, confirmed Deep Thought.
To everything. To the great question of life, the universe, and everything.
Yes. Both of the men had been trained for this moment. Their lights had been a preparation for it. They had been selected at birth as those who would witness the answer. But even so, they found themselves gasping and squirming like excited children.
And you really don't want to give it to us?
Urged Lunqual. I am.
Now,
said Deep Thought. They both licked their dry lips. Though I don't think, added Deep Thought, that you're going to like it.
Doesn't matter, added Thuk.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that is how that's pronounced.
We must know it. Now.
Now? Inquired Deep Thought.
Yes, now.
All right, said the computer and settled into silence again. The two men fidgeted. The tension was unbearable. You're really not going to like it, observed Deep Thought.
Tell us.
All right, said Deep Thought. The answer to the great question.
Yes.
Of life, the universe, and everything, said Deep Thought.
Yes.
Is, said Deep Thought, and paused.
Yes.
Is, yes. 42, said Deep Thought, with infinite majesty and calm. It was a long time before anyone spoke. Out of the corner of his eye, Thuk could see the sea of tense, expectant faces down in the square outside.
We're going to get lynched, aren't we?
He whispered. It was a tough assignment, said Deep Thought mildly.
42! yelled Lundqual. Is that all you've got to show for 7.5 million years' work?
I checked it quite thoroughly, said the computer, and that, quite definitely, is the answer. I think the problem, to be quite honest with you, is that you've never actually known what the question is.
But it was a great question. The ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything, howled Lundqual.
Yes, said Deep Thought with the air of one who suffers fools gladly. But what actually is it? A slow, stupefied silence crept over the men as they stared at the computer, and then at each other.
Well, you know, it's just everything. Everything,
offered Fook weakly. Exactly, said Deep Thought. So once you know, so once you do know what the question actually is, you'll know what the answer means.
Oh, terrific,
muttered Thuk, flinging aside his notebook and wiping away a tiny tear.
Look, all right, said Lundqual. Can you please just tell us the question?
The ultimate question?
Yes.
Of life, the universe, and everything?
Yes.
Deep Thought pondered for a moment. Tricky, he said. Deep Thought pondered this for another long moment. Finally. No, he said firmly. Both men collapsed in their chairs in despair. But I'll tell you who can, said Deep Thought. They both looked up sharply.
Who? Tell us.
Suddenly Alfred began to feel his apparently non-existent scalp begin to crawl as he found himself moving slowly but inexorably forwards towards the console. But it was only a dramatic zoom on the part of whoever made the recording, he assumed. I speak of none but the computer that is to come after me, intoned Deep Thought, his voice regaining its accustomed declamatory tones. A computer of whose merest operational parameters I am not worthy to calculate, and yet I will design it for you. A computer which can calculate the question to the ultimate answer. A computer of such infinite and subtle complexity that organic life itself shall form part of its operational matrix. And you yourselves shall take on new forms and go down into the computer to navigate its 10 million year program. Yes, I shall design this computer for you, and I shall name it also unto you, and it shall be called the Earth. That gaped at Deep Thought.
What a dull name,
he said, and great incisions appeared down the length of his body. Lundqual, too, suddenly sustained horrific gashes from nowhere. The computer console blocked and cracked, the walls flickered and crumbled, and the room collapsed upwards into its own ceiling. Slarty Blackfast was standing in front of Arthur, holding the 2 wires. "End of tape," he explained.
"Zaphod, wake up!" "Hey, come on! Wake up!"
Just let me stick to what I'm good at, yeah,"
murmured Zaphod and rolled away from the voice back to sleep.
"Do you want me to kick you?" said Ford.
"Would it give you a lot of pleasure?"
said Zaphod blearily.
"No."
"Nor me. So what's the point? Stop bugging me."
Zaphod curled himself up. "He'd had a double dose of the gas," said Trillian and looked down at him. 2 windpipes.
"Stop talking," said Zaphod. "It's hard enough trying to sleep anyway. What's the matter with the ground? It's all cold and hard."
"It's gold," said Ford. With amazingly balletic movement, Zaphod was standing and scanning the horizon, because that was how far the gold ground stretched in every direction, perfectly smooth and solid. It gleamed like... It's impossible to say what it gleamed like, because nothing in the universe gleams in quite the same way that a planet of solid gold does.
"Who put all that there?" yelped Zaphod, goggle-eyed.
"Don't get excited," said Ford. "It's only a catalogue."
"A who?"
"A catalogue," said Trillian. "An illusion."
"How can you say that?"
cried Zaphod, falling to his hands and knees and staring at the ground. He poked at it and prodded it. It was very heavy, very slightly soft. He could mark it with his fingernail. It was very yellow and very shiny, and when he breathed on it, his breath evaporated off it in that very peculiar and special way that breath evaporates off solid gold. "Trillian and I came round a while ago," said Ford. "We shouted and yelled until somebody came, and then carried on shouting and yelling until they got fed up and put us in their planet catalogue to keep us busy till they were ready to deal with it. This is all central tape." Zaphod stared at him bitterly.
"Ah, shit," he said. "You wake me up from my own perfectly good dream to show me somebody else's."
He sat down in a huff.
"What's that series of valleys over there?"
he said. "Hallmark," said Ford. "We had a look." "We didn't wake you earlier," said Trillian. "The last planet was knee-deep in fish."
"Fish?"
"Some people like the oddest things." "And before that," said Ford, "we had platinum. Bit dull. We thought you'd like to see this one, though." Seas of light glared at them in one solid blaze wherever they looked.
"Very pretty,"
said Zaphod petulantly. In the sky, a huge green catalogue number appeared. It flickered and changed, and when they looked round again, so had to land. As with one voice, they all went, "Ugh." The sea was purple. The beach they were on was composed of tiny yellow and green pebbles, presumably terribly precious stones. The mountains in the distance seemed soft and undulating with red peaks. Nearby stood a solid silver beach table with a frilly mauve parasol and silver tassels. In the sky, a huge sign appeared, replacing the catalogue number. It said, "Whatever your tastes, Madre Fear can cater for you. We are not proud." And 500 entirely naked women dropped out of the sky in parachutes. In a moment, the scene vanished, and left them in a springtime meadow full of cows.
"Ow," said Zaphod. "My brains."
"You want to talk about it?" said Ford.
"Yeah, okay,"
said Zaphod, and all three sat down and ignored the scene that came and went around them.
"I figured this.
said Zaphod. Whatever happened to my mind, I did it. And I did it in such a way that it wouldn't be detected by the government screening tests. And I wasn't to know anything about it myself. Pretty crazy, right? The other two nodded in agreement. So I reckon it was so secret that I can't let anybody know about it. Not the galactic government, not even myself. And the answer is, I don't know, obviously. But I put a few things together, and I can begin to guess. When did I decide to run for president? And shortly after the death of President Yoden Vrans. You remember Yoden before?
Yeah, said Ford. He was that guy we met when we were kids. The Arcturian captain.
He was a gas.
He gave us counters when you bust your way into his mega-theatre. Said you were the most amazing kid he'd ever met. What's all this? Said Trillian. Ancient history, said Ford. When we were kids together on Beetlejuice. The Arcturian mega-freighters used to carry most of the bulky trade between the Galactic Centre and the outlying regions. The Beetlejuice trading scouts used to find the markets, and the Arcturians would supply them. There was a lot of trouble with space pirates before they wiped them all out in the Drawn Jealous Wars, and the mega-freighters had to be equipped with the most fantastic defense shields known to galactic science. They were real brutes of ships, and huge. In orbit around the planet, they would eclipse the sun. One day, young Zaphod here tries to raid one on a tri-jet scooter designed for stratosphere work. A mere kid. Forget it. It was crazier than a mad monkey. I went along for the ride because I'd got some very safe money on him not doing it. I didn't want him coming back with fake evidence. So what happens? We get in this tri-jet that which he'd souped up into something totally other, cross 3 parsecs in a matter of weeks, bust our way into a mega-theatre, I still don't know how, marched onto the bridge waving toy pistols and demanding conkers. A wilder thing I have not known. Lost me a year's pocket money. For what? Conkers.
The captain was this really amazing guy. Yoden Vrans, said Zaphod. He gave us food, booze, stuff from really weird parts of the galaxy. Lots of conkers, of course. We had just the most incredible time. Then he teleported us back into the maximum security wing of the Beetlejuice State Prison. He was a cool guy. Went on to become president of the galaxy.
Zaphod paused.
The scene around them was currently plunged into gloom. Dark mist swirled around them, and elephantine shapes lurked instantly in the shadows. The air was occasionally rent with the sounds of illusory beings being murdered. With the sounds of illusory beings murdering other illusionary beings. Presumably enough people must have liked this sort of thing to make it a paying proposition. Ford, said Zaphod quietly.
Yeah?
Just before Yoden died, he came to see me.
What? You never told me?
No.
What did he say? What did he come to see you about?
He told me about the heart of gold. It was his idea that I should steal it.
His idea?
Yeah, said Zaphod. And the only possible way of stealing it was to be at the launching ceremony. Ford gaped at him in astonishment for a moment. Then he roared with laughter.
Are you telling me, he said, that you set yourself up to become president of the galaxy just to steal that ship?
That's it,
said Zaphod, with the sort of grin that would get most people locked away in a room with soft walls. But why? Said Ford. What's so important about having it?
Don't know, said Zaphod. I think if I'd constantly known what was so important about it, and what I would have needed it for, it would have shown up on the brain screening tests, and I never would have passed. I think Yoden told me a lot of things that are still locked away. So you think you went and mocked about inside your own brain as a result of Yoden talking to you? He was a hell of a talker. Yeah, but that's what, old mate. You want to look after yourself, you know? Zafford shrugged. I mean, don't you have any inkling of the reasons for all of this? Asked Ford. Zafford thought hard about this, and doubt seemed to cross his mind. No, he said at last. I don't seem to be letting myself into any of my secrets. Still, he added on further reflection, I can understand that. I wouldn't trust myself further than I could spit a rat. A moment later, the last planet in the catalogue vanished from beneath them, and the solid world resolved itself again. They were sitting in a plush waiting room full of glass-up tables and designer wands. A tall, Magrathene man was standing in front of them.
The mice will see you now, he said. So there you have it, said Slarty Blackfast, making a feeble and perfunctory attempt to clear away some of the appalling mess of his study. He picked up a piece of paper from the top of a pile, but then couldn't think of where else to put it, so he put it back on top of the original pile, which promptly fell over. Deep thought designed the earth. We built it, and you lived on it. And then the Vogons came and destroyed it 5 minutes before the program was completed, added Arthur. Not unbitterly. Yes, said the old man, pausing to gaze hopelessly around the room. 10 million years of planning and work gone just like that. 10 million years, Earthman. Can you conceive of that kind of time span? A galactic civilization could grow from a single worm 5 times over in that time. Gone. He paused. Well, that's bureaucracy for you, he added. You know, said Arthur thoughtfully, all this explains a lot of things. All through my life, I've had this strange, unaccountable feeling that something was going on in the world. Something big, even sinister. And no one would tell me what it was. No, said the old man. That's perfectly normal paranoia. Everyone in the universe has that. Everyone? Said Arthur. Well, if everyone has that, perhaps it means something. Perhaps somewhere out there, the universe we know. Maybe. Who cares? Said Sarty Bartfast before Arthur could get too excited. Perhaps I'm old and tired, he continued, but I always think that the chances of finding out what is really going on are so absurdly remote that the only thing to do is to say hang the sense of it and keep yourself occupied. Look at me. I design coastlines. I got an award for Norway. He rummaged around in a pile of debris and pulled out a large perfect block with his name on it and a model of Norway moulded into it. Where's the sense in that? He said. None that I've been able to make out. I've been doing fjords all my life. For a fleeting moment, they became fashionable, and I got a major award. He turned it over in his hands with a shrug and tossed it aside carelessly, but not so carelessly that it didn't land on something soft. In this replacement air for building, they've given me Africa to do. And, of course, I'm doing it all fjords again, because I happen to like them. And I'm old-fashioned enough to think that they give a lovely baroque feel to a continent. And they tell me it's not equatorial enough. Equatorial! He gave a hollow laugh. What does it matter? Science has achieved some wonderful things, of course. but I'd rather be happy than right any day.
And are you?
No. That's where it all falls down, of course.
Pity, said Arthur with sympathy. It sounded like quite a good lifestyle otherwise. Somewhere on the wall, a small white light flashed.
Come,
said Slarty Bartfast.
you are to meet the mice. Your arrival on the planet has caused considerable excitement. It has already been hailed, so I gather, as the third most improbable event in the history of the universe.
What were the first two?
Oh, probably just coincidences,
said Slarty Bartfast carelessly. He opened the door and stood waiting for Arthur to follow. Arthur glanced round him once more, and then down at himself, at the sweaty, dishevelled clothes he'd been lying in the mud on Thursday morning. I seem to be having tremendous difficulty with my lifestyle, he muttered to himself.
I beg your pardon?
Asked the old man mildly. Oh, nothing, said Arthur, only joking. It is of course well known that careless talk costs lives, but the full scale of the problem is not always appreciated. For instance, at the very moment that Arthur said, I seem to be having tremendous difficulty with my lifestyle, a freak wormhole opened up in the fabric of the space-time continuum and carried his words far, far back in time, across almost infinite reaches of space, to a distant galaxy where strange and warlike beings were poised on the brink of frightful interstellar battle. The two opposing leaders were meeting for the last time. A dreadful silence fell across the conference table as the commander of the Wilharts, resplendent in his black jewelled battle shorts, gazed levelly at the Gurgravant leader squatting opposite him in a cloud of green, sweet-smelling steam, and, with a million sleek and horribly but-weaponed star cruisers poised to unleash electric death at his single word of command, challenged the vile creature to take back what it had said about his mother. The creature stirred in its sickly, boiling vapour, and at that very moment the words, I seem to be having tremendous difficulty with my lifestyle, drifted across the conference table. Unfortunately, in the Vulhog tongue, this was the most dreadful insult imaginable, and there was nothing for it but to wage terrible war for centuries. Eventually, of course, after their galaxy had been decimated over a few thousand years, it was realised that the whole thing had been a ghastly mistake, and so the opposing battle fleets settled their few remaining differences in order to launch a joint attack on our own galaxy, now positively identified as the source of the offending remark. For thousands more years, the mighty ships tore across the empty wastes of space, and finally dived screaming onto the first planet they came across, which happened to be the Earth, where due to a terrible miscalculation of scale, the entire battle fleet was accidentally swallowed by a small dog. Those who study the complex interplay of cause and effect in the history of the universe say that this sort of thing is going on all the time, but we are powerless to prevent it. It's just life, they say. A short aircraft trip brought Arthur and the old Madrophine down a doorway. To a doorway. They left the car and went through the door into a waiting room full of glass-topped tables and perspex awards. Almost immediately, a light flashed above the door at the other side of the room, and they entered. "Arthur, you're safe!" a voice said. "Am I?" said Arthur, rather startled. "Oh, good." The lighting was rather subdued, and it took him a moment or so to see Ford, Trilling and Zavod sitting around a large table beautifully decked out with exotic dishes, strange sweetmeats and bizarre fruits. They were stuffing their faces. "Well, what happened to you?" demanded Arthur. "Well," said Zavod, attacking a boneful of grilled muscle, I guess you have been gassing us and zapping our minds and generally been weird and have us now given us a rather nice meal to make it up to us. Here, he said, hoiking out a lump of evil-smelling meat from a bowl. Have some vegan rhino cutlet. It's delicious if you happen to like that sort of thing. Hosts? Said Arthur. What hosts? I don't see any. A small voice said,
Welcome to the lunch, earth creature.
Arthur glanced around and then suddenly yelped. Ah! He said, There are mice on the table! There was an awkward silence as everyone looked pointedly at Arthur. He was busy staring at two white mice sitting in what looked like whiskey glasses on the table. He heard the silence and glanced round at everyone. Oh! He said with sudden realisation. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't quite prepared for... Let me introduce you, said Trillian. Arthur, this is Benji Mouse.
Hi,
said one of the mice. His whiskers stroked what must have been a touch-sensitive panel on the inside of the whiskey glass like a fear, and moved forward slightly. And this is Frankie Mouse. The other mouse said,
Pleased to meet you.
And did likewise. Arthur gaped. But aren't they... Yes, said Trillian. They are the mice I brought with me from the earth. She looked him in the eye, and Arthur thought he detected the tiniest resigned shrug. Could you pass me some of that bowl of grated Arturian mega donkey? She said. Slarty Bartfast coughed politely.
Excuse me,
he said.
Yes, thank you, Slarty Blackfast,
said Benji Mouse sharply.
You may go.
What? Very well.
Said the old man, slightly taken aback.
I'll just go and get on with some of my fjords then.
Well, in fact, that won't be necessary,
said Frankie Mouse.
It looks very much as if he won't be needing the new earth any longer.
He swiveled his pink little eyes.
Not now that we have found a native of the planet who was there seconds before it was destroyed.
What?
Cried Slarty Blackfast, aghast.
You can't mean that. After 1,000 glaciers poised and ready to roll over Africa.
Well, perhaps you can take a quick skiing holiday before you dismantle them,
said Frankie, acidly.
Skiing holiday?
Cried the old man.
Those glaciers are a work of art. Elegantly sculpted contours, soaring pinnacles of ice, deep, majestic ravines. It would be sacrilege to go skiing on high art.
Thank you, Slarty Blackfast,
said Benji firmly.
That will be all.
Yes, sir,
said the old man coldly.
Thank you very much. Well, goodbye, Earthman,
he said to Arthur.
Hope the lifestyle comes together.
With a brief nod to the rest of the company, he turned and walked sadly out of the room. Arthur stared after him, not knowing what to say.
Now,
said Benji Mouse.
To business.
Ford and Zafford clinked their glasses together. To business, they said.
I beg your pardon,
said Benji. Ford looked around.
Sorry, I thought you were proposing a toast,
he said. The two mice struttled impatiently around in their glass transports. Finally they composed themselves, and Benji moved forward to address Arthur.
Now, Earth creature,
He said.
The situation we have on the Fate is this. We have, as you know, been more or less running your planet for the last 10 million years in order to find this wretched thing called the ultimate question.
Why? Said Arthur sharply.
No, we already thought of that one,
said Frankie, interrupting.
but it doesn't quite fit the answer. Why 42? You see, it doesn't work.
No, said Arthur. I mean, why have you been doing it?
Oh, I see.
Said Frankie.
Well, eventually, just habit. I think, to be brutally honest. And this is more or less the point. We're sick to the teeth of the whole thing, and the prospect of doing it all over again on account of those winnet-ridden bobons quite frankly gives me the screaming heebie-jeebies. You know what I mean? It was by the merest lucky chance that Benji and I finished our particular job and left the planet early for a quick holiday, and have since manipulated our way back to Magrafia by the good offices of their friends. Magrafia is a gateway back to our own dimension,
put in Benji.
Since when,
continued his mooring colleague,
we have had an offer of quite an enormous fan contract to do the 5D chat show's lecture circuit back in our own dimensional neck of the woods, and I am very much inclined to take it.
I would, wouldn't you, Ford? Said Zephyr pumpingly.
Oh yes, said Ford. Jump at it, like a shot.
Arthur glanced at them, wondering what this was all leading up to.
But we've got to have product, you see,
said Frankie.
I mean, ideally, we still need the ultimate question in some form or other.
Zaphod leaned forward towards Arthur. You see, he said, they're just sitting there in their studio looking very relaxed and, just mentioning that they happen to know the answer to life, the universe and everything, and then eventually have to admit, in fact, that it's 42. This show's probably going to be quite short. No follow-up, you see.
We have to have something that sounds good,
said Benji. Something that sounds good, exclaimed Arthur. An ultimate question that sounds good. From a couple of mice. The mice bristled.
Well, I mean, yes, idealism, yes, the dignity of pure research, yes, the pursuit of truth in all its forms, but there is a point, I'm afraid, where you need to begin to suspect that if there is any real truth, its entire multi-dimensional infinity of the universe is almost certainly being run by a bunch of maniacs. And if it comes to a choice between spending yet another 10 million years finding that out, and on the other hand, just taking the money and running, then I, for one, could do with the exercise,
said Frankie. But, started Arthur hopelessly. Hey, well, you get this, Iron-Man, interrupted Zephod. You are a last generation product of that computer matrix, right? And you were there right up to the moment your planet got fingered, yeah?
So your brain was an organic part of the penultimate configuration of the computer program,
said Ford. Rather lucidly, he thought. Right, said Zaphod.
Well,
said Arthur doubtfully. He wasn't aware of ever having felt an organic part of anything. He had always seen this as one of his problems.
In other words,
said Benji, steering his curious little vehicle right over to Arthur,
there's a good chance that the structure of the question is encoded in the structure of your brain. So we want to buy it off you.
What? The question? Said Arthur.
Yes,
said Ford and Trillian. For lots of money, said Zaphod.
No,
said Frankie.
It's the brain we want to buy.
What? Well,
who would miss it?
inquired Benji.
I thought you said you could just read his brain electronically, protested Ford.
Oh yes,
said Frankie.
But we'd have to get it out first. It's got to be prepared, treated,
said Benji.
Diced.
Thank you, shouted Arthur, tipping up his chair and backing away from the table in horror.
It could always be replaced,
said Benji reasonably.
If you think it's important. Yes, an electronic brain,
said Frankie.
A simple one would suffice.
A simple one? Wailed Arthur. Yeah, said Zaphod with a sudden evil grin. You just have to program it to see. What? And I don't understand. And where's the T? Who knows the difference?
Oh, what?
cried Arthur, backing away still further. See what I mean? Said Zaphod and howled with pain, but with something Trillian did at that moment. I've noticed the difference, said Arthur.
No, you wouldn't,
said Frankie Mouse.
You'd be programmed not to.
Ford made for the door.
Look, I'm sorry, my good lads, he said. I don't think we've got a deal.
I rather think we have to have a deal,
said the mice in chorus, all the charm vanishing from their piping little voices in an instant. See, now that voice is? I'm doing the right voice. I'm doing the right voice that it says in the book, for once. With a tiny whining shriek, their two glass transports lifted themselves off the table and spun through the air towards Arthur, who stumbled further backwards into a blind corner, utterly unable to cope or think of anything. Trillian grabbed him desperately by the arm and tried to drag him towards the door, which Ford and Zaphod were struggling to open, but Arthur was a dead weight. He seemed hypnotised by the airborne rodents swooping towards him. She screamed at him, but he just gaped. With one more yank, Ford and Zaphod got the door open. On the other side of it was a small pack of rather ugly men, who they could only assume were the heavy mob of Magrathea. Not only were they ugly themselves, but the medical equipment they carried with them was also far from pretty. They charged. So, Arthur was about to have his head cut open, and Trillian was unable to help him. And Ford and Zaphod were about to be set upon by several thugs a great deal heavier and more sharply armed than they were. All in all, it was extremely fortunate that at that moment every alarm on the planet burst into an ear-splitting din. "Emergency! Emergency!" blared the Lapsons from Magrathea. "Hostile ship has landed on the planet! Armed intruders in Section 8A! Defence stations! Defence stations!" The two mice sniffed irritably around the fragments of their glass transports where they lay shattered on the floor.
"Damnation!"
muttered Frankie Mouse.
"All that fuss over 2 pounds of earthling brain!"
He struttled round and about, his pink eyes flashing, his fine white coat bristling with static.
"The only thing we can do now,"
said Benji, crouching and stroking his whiskers in thought,
"is to try and think a question. Invent one that will sound plausible." "Difficult," said Frankie.
he thought.
"How about, what's yellow and dangerous?"
Benji considered this for a moment.
"No, no good,"
he said.
"Doesn't fit the answer."
They sank into silence for a few seconds.
"All right,"
said Benji.
"What do you get if you multiply 6 by 7? No, too literal, too factual," said Frankie. "Wouldn't sustain the punter's interest."
Again they thought. Then Frankie said,
"Here's a thought. How many roads must a man walk down?" "Ah,"
said Benji.
"Aha, now that does sound promising."
He rolled the phrase round a little.
"Yes,
He said,
that's excellent. Sounds very significant, without actually tying you down to meaning anything at all. How many roads must a man walk down? 42. Excellent, excellent. That'll fox them. Frankie, baby, we are made."
They performed a scampering dance in excitement. Near them on the floor lay several rather ugly men who had been hit about the head with some heavy design awards. Half a mile away, 4 figures pounded up a corridor, looking for a way out. They emerged into a wide open plan computer bay. They glanced about wildly. "Which way, you reckon, Zaphod?" said Ford.
"At a wild guess, I'd say down here,"
said Zaphod, running down off to the right between a computer bank and the wall. As the others started after him, he was brought up short by a kilozap energy bolt that cracked through the air inches in front of him and found a small section of adjacent wall. A voice on a loudtailer said,
"Okay, people Brooks, hold it right there. We've got you covered."
"Cops," hissed Zaphod, and spun round in a crouch.
"You want to try and get it all, Ford?"
"Okay, this way," said Ford, and the 4 of them ran down the gangway between 2 computer banks. At the end of the gangway appeared a heavily armoured and spacesuited figure waving a vicious kilozap down.
"We don't want to shoot you, people Brooks,"
shouted the figure.
Suits me fine,
Shouted Zaphod back and dived down a wide gap between two data process units. The other swerved in behind them. There are two of them, said Trillian. We're cornered. They squeezed themselves down in an angle between a large computer data bank and the wall. They held their breath and waited. Suddenly the air exploded with energy bolts as both the cops opened fire on them simultaneously.
Hey, they're shooting at us,
said Arthur, crouching in a tight ball. I thought they said they didn't want to do that.
Yeah, I thought they said that,
agreed Ford. Zaphod thought he set up for a dangerous moment.
Hey,
he said.
I thought you said you didn't want to shoot us.
And ducked again. They waited. After a moment, a voice replied,
Isn't easy being a cop.
What did he say?
Whispered Ford in astonishment.
He said it isn't easy being a cop.
Well, surely that's his problem, isn't it?
I'd have thought so.
Ford shouted out,
Hey, listen! I think we've got enough problems of our own, having you shooting at us, so if you could avoid laying your problems on us as well, I think we'd all find it easier to cope.
Another pause, and then the loudhailer again.
Now see here, Guy,
said the voice in the loudhailer.
You're not dealing with any dumb, two-bit, trigger-happy morons with low hairlines, little piggy eyes, and no conversation. We're a couple of intelligent, caring guys that you'd probably quite like if you met us socially. I don't go around gratuitously shooting people and then bragging about it afterwards in seedy Space Rangers bars like some cops I could mention. I go around shooting people gratuitously and then I agonise about it afterwards for hours to my girlfriend.
None write novels,
chimed in the other cop.
though I haven't had any of them published yet. So I better warn you, I'm in a mean mood.
Ford's eyes popped halfway out of their sockets.
Who are these guys?
He said.
Don't know,
said Zaphod.
I think I preferred it when they were shooting.
So, are you going to come quietly?
Shouted one of the cops again.
Or are you going to let us blast you out?
Which would you prefer?
Shouted Ford. A millisecond later the air about them started to fry again, as bolt after bolt of Killzap hauled itself into the computer bank in front of them. The fusillade continued for several seconds at unbearable intensity. When it stopped, there were a few seconds of near quietness as echoes die away.
You still there?
Called one of the cops.
Yes,
they called back.
We didn't enjoy doing that at all,
Shouted the other cop.
we could tell.
Shouted Ford.
Now, listen to this, Babel Brooks, and you better listen good.
Why? Shouted back Zaphod.
Because,
Shouted the cop.
it's going to be very intelligent and quite interesting and humane. Now, either you give yourselves up now and let us beat you up a bit, although not very much of course, because we are very opposed to needless violence, or we blow up this entire planet and possibly one or two of us we notice on the way here.
But that's crazy.
Cried Trillian.
He wouldn't do that.
Oh yes, we would,
Shouted the cop.
wouldn't we?
He asked everyone.
Oh yes, we'd have to, no question.
The other one called back.
But why?
Demanded Trillian.
Because there's some things you have to do, even if you're an enlightened liberal cop who knows all about sensitivity and everything.
I just don't believe these guys.
Muttered Ford, shaking his head. One cop shouted to the other.
Shall we shoot them again for a bit?
Yeah, why not?
They let fly with another electric barrage. The heat and noise were quite fantastic. Slowly the computer bank was beginning to disintegrate. The front had almost all melted away. Thick rivulets of molten metal were winding their way back towards where they were squatting. They huddled further back and waited for the end. And that's about relevant, really, isn't it? I mean, police just firing on people. Nah, it's almost like all cops are bastards and always have been. Yeah. Only that. Yeah. But the end never came. At least, not then. Quite suddenly the barrage stopped, and the sudden silence afterwards was punctuated by a couple of strangled gurgles and thuds. The four stared at each other. "What happened?" said Arthur.
They stopped.
Said Zaphod with a shrug.
Why?
Dunno. Do you want to go and ask them?
No.
They waited.
Hello?
Called up Ford. No answer.
That's odd.
Perhaps it's a trap.
They haven't the wit.
What were those thuds?
Dunno.
They waited for a few more seconds.
Right,
said Ford.
I'm going to go have a look.
He glanced around at the others.
Is no one going to say, "No, you can't possibly. Let me go instead"?
They all shook their heads.
"Oh well,"
he said, and stood up. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, after a second or so, nothing continued to happen. Ford peered through the thick smoke that was billowing out of the burning computer. Cautiously, he stepped out into the open. Still nothing happened. 20 yards away, you could dimly see through the smoke that the space-suited figure of one of the cops. He was lying in a crumpled heap on the ground. 20 yards in opposite direction lay the second man. No one else was anywhere to be seen. This struck Ford as being extremely odd. Slowly, nervously, he walked towards the first one. The body lay reassuringly still as he approached it, and continued to lie reassuringly still as he reached it and put his foot down on the kilozap gun that still dangled from its limp fingers. He reached down and picked it up, meeting no resistance. The cop was quite clearly dead. A quick examination revealed him to be from Balgulon Kappa. He was a methane-breathing life form, dependent on his spacesuit for survival in the thin oxygen atmosphere of Microthea. The tiny life support system computer on his backpack appeared unexpectedly to have blown up. Ford poked around in it in considerable astonishment. These miniature suit computers usually had the full backup of the main computer back on the ship, with which they were directly linked through the sub-ether. Such a system was fail-safe in all circumstances, other than total feedback malfunction, which was unheard of. He hurried over to the other prone figure, and discovered that exactly the same impossible thing had happened to him, presumably simultaneously. He called the others over to look. They came, shared his astonishment, but not his curiosity.
"Let's get shot at this hole,"
said Zaphod.
"If wherever I'm supposed to be looking for is here, I don't want it."
He grabbed the second kilozap gun, blasted a perfectly harmless accounting computer, and rushed out into the corridor, followed by the others. He very nearly blasted the hell out of an air car that stood waiting for them a few yards away. The air car was empty, but Arthur recognised it as the one belonging to Slarty Bartfast. It had a note from him pinned to a part of its sparse instrument panel. The note had an arrow drawn on it, pointing at one of the controls. It said, "This is probably the best button to press." The air car rocketed them at speeds in excess of R17 through the steel tunnels that led out onto the appalling surface of the planet, which was now in the grip of yet another drear morning twilight. Ghastly grey light congealed on the land. R is a velocity measure, defined as a reasonable speed of travel that is consistent with health, mental well-being, and not being more than, say, 5 minutes late. It is therefore clearly an almost infinitely variable figure according to circumstances, since the first two factors vary not only with speed taken as an absolute, but also with awareness of the third factor. Unless handled with tranquility, this equation can result in considerable stress, ulcers, and even death. R17 is not a fixed velocity, but it is clearly far too fast. The aircraft flung itself through the air at R17 and above, depositing them next to the Heart of Gold, which stood starkly on the frozen surface like a bleached bone. It then precipitately hurled itself back in the direction whence it had come, presumably on important business of its own. Shivering, the four of them stood and looked at the ship. Beside it stood another one. It was the Blagulon Kappa police craft, a bulbous shark-like affair, slate green in colour, and smothered with black stenciled letters of varying degrees of size and unfriendliness. The letters informed anyone who cared to read them where the ship was from, what section of the police it was assigned to, and where the power feeds should be connected. It seemed somehow unnaturally dark and silent, even for a ship whose two-man crew was at that moment lying asphyxiated in a smoke-filled chamber several miles beneath the ground. It is one of those curious things that is impossible to explain or define, but one can sense when a ship is completely dead. Ford could sense it and found it most mysterious. A ship and two policemen seemed to have gone spontaneously dead. In his experience, the universe didn't work like that. The other three could sense it too, but they could sense the bitter cold even more, and hurried back to the Heart of Gold, suffering from an acute attack of no curiosity. Ford stayed and went to examine the Blagulon ship. As he walked, he nearly tripped over an inert steel figure lying face down in the cold dust.
"Marvin!"
he exclaimed.
"What are you doing?"
Don't feel you have to take any notice of me, please,
came a muffled drone.
"But how are you, Metal Man?"
said Ford.
Very depressed.
"What's up?"
I don't know, said Marvin. I've never been there.
Why, said Ford, squatting down beside him, shivering.
Are you lying face down in the dust?
It's a very effective way of being wretched, said Marvin. Don't pretend you want to talk to me. I know you hate me.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. Everybody does. It's part of the shape of the universe. I only have to talk to somebody and they begin to hate me. Even robots hate me. If you just ignore me, I expect I shall probably go away.
He jacked himself up to his feet and stood resolutely facing the opposite direction.
That ship hated me,
he said dejectedly, indicating the police craft.
That ship?
Said Ford in sudden excitement.
What happened to it? Do you know?
It hated me because I talked to it.
You talked to it?
Exclaimed Ford.
What do you mean, you talked to it?
Simple. I got very bored and depressed, so I went and plugged myself in to its external computer feed. I talked to the computer at great length and explained my view of the universe to it, said Marvin.
And what happened?
Pressed Ford.
It committed suicide,
said Marvin, and stalked off back to the Heart of Gold. That night, as the Heart of Gold was busy putting a few light years between itself and the Horsehead Nebula, Zaphod lounged under the small palm tree on the bridge, trying to bang his brain into shape with massive pan-galactic garter blasters. Ford and Trillian sat in a corner discussing life and matters arising from it, and Arthur took to his bed to flip through Ford's copy of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Since he was going to have to live in the place, he reasoned, he'd better start finding out something about it. He came across this entry. It said, "The history of every major galactic civilization tends to pass through three distinct and recognizable phases, those of survival, inquiry, and sophistication, otherwise known as the how, why, and where phases. For instance, the first phase is characterized by the question, how can we eat? The second by the question, why do we eat? And the third by the question, where shall we have lunch?" He got no further before the ship's intercom buzzed into life.
"Hey, Earthman, you hungry, kid?"
said Zaphod's voice. Well, yes, a little peckish, I suppose, said Arthur.
"Okay, baby, hold tight," said Zaphod. "We'll take in a quite quick bite at the restaurant at the end of the universe."
And that is the end of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Boom, at last. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this, maybe. And maybe we'll do another one. Maybe we will also take in a quick bite at the restaurant at the end of the universe. Although I'm not sure how quick it is, because it's a book roughly the same size as this one, so it won't be that quick a bite. But that's not the point. Or we could do something else, like The Hobbit, maybe, as I said in the previous episode. Or something else again, like we had a Bernice Summerfield short story as the pilot one. So maybe we could do some more of that. There might even be a poll up somewhere by the time you're listening to this. I don't know. I'm not in the future. You are though, so you'll know. You'll know what to do. Alright, cool. Bye-bye.